We welcome you from the heart of the Europe. UATV English broadcast is here. Nick Starkov in studio. Today we are talking about the military situation in Ukraine over the 83 days of hostilities. Russian invasion of Ukraine continues. And today we start from the General Staff of Ukraine report about the total estimation of Russian losses in Ukraine. Let's see the stats right now on screen. Almost 28,000 of the liquidated military personnel. More than 1,000 of tanks, namely 1,235 tanks, armored personnel vehicles, more than the number exceeded 3,000. Artillery systems, 578, multiple rocket launcher systems, 198, aerial vehicles and other vehicles, automobiles, you see aircraft, helicopters, unmanned aerial vehicles and boats, special equipment and cruise missiles. All the stats you are seeing right now on the screen is provided by the General Forces of Ukraine daily. This is the latest update as of May 17 of 2022. The quantity of the Russian army losses right now exceeds the greatest already the greatest every estimated losses during other military campaigns. Also today we are going to discuss our topic with our military expert from Azerbaijan, Agil Rustamzade, and I welcome our guest here in studio. My greetings to you, Agil. Здравствуйте, Agil.
Thanks for having me. My greetings to our audience. Our viewers are happy, I think, and I welcome you. We are broadcasting in English, the conversation will be in Russian, and then we will translate it later. First, I want to invite you to take a look at the maps published in the recent report of the Institute for the Study of War.
So the key takeaways of the latest update is that Russian and Ukrainian authorities negotiated evacuation of wounded Ukrainian servicemen from Azovstal. Also, right now you can see the the contact line between assessed territories. Gray is Ukrainian, red is Russian. Ukrainian forces reached the Russian border north of Kharkiv city. This is another key point. Also, Russian forces continued unsuccessful ground operations in Donetsk and Luhansk Oblast and did not make any confirmed advances on May 16. So this is the assessment of the Institute of Study of War as of right now. А теперь давайте возвращаемся к нашему разговору. Мы только что давайте сделаем небольшой.
Now let's get back to the conversation. Let's start with a brief introduction about what is happening now in east of the country. Ukrainian authorities claim that Ukrainian troops have reached the border of the Kharkiv region. Some experts say that Russia is winding down its ground operations in Kharkiv and possibly even Donetsk directions. Are there any signals confirming this? What is happening in the Kharkiv region cannot clearly be called that the Ukrainian army drove Russian troops out of the Kharkiv region. Undoubtedly, the Ukrainian army has its merit, but the fact is that due to the fact the Russian army is overwhelmed, it has decided that it does not need to concentrate on the border villages in the Kharkiv region. It won't make any effect for it. They have a plan to reduce the front line in order to redirect their forces and exert more firepower on the forces in Donbass. As for the Kharkiv region, there will be a gradual withdrawal of Russian troops there. I think there will be a decline in combat activity. But as for Donbass, most likely not, because we see changes in the plans of the military leadership. They were planning a large ring of encirclement, but eventually had no enough forces or resources. The Ukrainian army is also desperately resisting. This leads to a change in the plan. It has now narrowed its objectives to a small ring of encirclement. These are the cities of Severodonetsk and Lysychansk. There is still combat activity there, not to say any signs of decline. If we talk about the remaining capabilities of the Russian army, British intelligence reported not long ago that the Russian army's strike capability in Ukraine had been reduced by 1/3. Another signals of this is that the Russian leadership is constantly changing the targets of special operation. Does this mean that the nature of military operation on the territory of Donbass is changing? Can we say that everything is going back to the rhetoric before the full-scale invasion? I see a point. I'll try to outline the whole situation. The fact is that you have a front line of 130 kilometers. The entire east or south of Ukraine is the front line. Both sides are exhausted. The two armies have been fighting against each other for 3 months. Both sides are depleted and weary. They are running short of ammunition, manpower, and other resources. Right now, at this moment, the Russian army has an opportunity to perform tactical tasks in a small part of the front in the Luhansk region. 10 days ago, and I said this in my interviews before, the relevance of the second phase became meaningless. The Russian army was not able to fulfill its tasks. What you and I are witnessing right now is an attempt by the Russian troops to complete the second phase of this military campaign in at least some satisfactory manner. After that, both sides need an operational pause, and both will need replenishment of forces and means. But at the same time, there is a possibility that Russian army is preparing for the third phase. This phase may have different objectives, various objectives, and there is also a possibility that the end of the second phase will gradually move into a positional war for some period. 4 days ago, Britain's defense minister said London is searching for Soviet-era military ammunition and weapons with the aim of transferring them to Ukraine. He also noted that in this search, the department faced similar attempts from the Russian side. Does this indicate that Russia is not ready to stop the war? This operational pause you are talking about will eventually end with another phase of active combat activities. You know, there is no direct correlation if the army is not even going to fight. And we have to understand that the Russian army has spent half and in some positions even more than half of its ammunition. The army cannot stay without weapons. So this is not a direct sign that Russia plans to go to war. Not a direct sign, we need to separate this clearly. At the same time, however, let's say we can assess the state of affairs in the Russian army. They haven't mobilized their economy, they haven't built up large stocks of shells and ammunition, artillery and rocket artillery. First of all, in the Russian army's concept of warfare, this is a resource that is used intensively, and this resource needs to be attracted. Evidently, so far, it has no shortage, but let's say they know that in a month or let's say in 2 weeks, there could be ammunition shortage. And this is something that Russian army can't afford itself. Does Russia still have reserves to throw into the war right now? And in general, how logical is this? Apart from the conscripts who we can observe right now are already being actively drafted, and there is even a hidden mobilization going on. I observed that the Russian army is playing at the tactical level. There are pros and cons of the playing at the tactical level. The minuses are that they can use all of their operational reserves. I believe that there are still somewhere between 10 or 15,000 of troops from Kursk and Belgorod regions available to take part in combat operations, for example in Donbass. But for the moment, it is not expedient to use them from the military point of view with an eye on an operational situation. We can see that the second stage is coming to an end, and it is very impractical to finish this phase by burning out all of its resources. However, throughout its military conflict, we have repeatedly witnessed unnecessary actions by the military command of the Russian Federation, so I would not take it upon myself to say that they will not use them. Naturally, it's extremely difficult to predict anything about the further course of its military campaign, because we have seen many examples of illogical behavior on the part of the Russian army leadership and combat officers. Chernobyevka, Bilogorivka, Zminy Island. These examples have become memes in Ukraine, but let's try to answer this question. What would be a possible third stage? A slack in hostilities look like? Will the residents of Ukrainian cities be able to take a breath in peace, engage in routine again, or should we still expect an arrival of a cruise missile? I was going to start with that, but you have bitten me to it. Your situation, even though there will be a truce tomorrow, will be different. Different from the time you lived in from 2014 to 2022. And back then, there was shooting on the line of contact between Ordlo and Ukraine. But now the stakes are kind of higher, and now you have the same conflict, but with the Russian Federation. And if someone were to guarantee you that without your complete military and political victory, Ukraine would lose its threat in the face of the Russian Federation, they would be absolutely wrong. There will always be the threat of a missile strike. At the same time, analyzing all the potential resources of the Russian Federation, it is possible to assume several scenarios of developments in the next few days or weeks. Either there will be dragging out the second stage to find, shall we say, focus or some narrative to set a new goal for the military campaign, and we will drawing resources, and they will be drawing resources for any tactical achievements in Donbass. Or we see a gradual decline in military activity, the involvement of troops to regroup in order to begin the third phase with some other military objectives. One of the supposed military tasks, I believe, could be a new attempt to approach from the territory of Donbass. And there could also be the attempt to go through the city of Kharkiv to Odessa region with the prospect of reaching Transnistria. These two scenarios can be considered at the moment, because there is still no room for analysis. At this point, there is still a continuation of the second stage, and we have not yet seen any indication that a new stage is being prepared. Maybe in a couple of weeks, something will change. If the consensus is that Russia is unlikely to stop the military campaign in Ukraine, and you confirm that, you're not the only one, even if there is an operational ceasefire to come, then should Ukraine, having the support of the West, now stop reclaiming its territories? Although it's absolutely logical that Ukraine would not do this. I mean, how to make the most of this period, which we will see soon. And the second question, and this will be the last question I would like to ask you. Yesterday, the negotiations concluded, resulting in the evacuation of 256, according to some reports, even more Ukrainian military personnel from Azovstal, in particular the wounded ones. Does that indicate that Russia is now getting ready to enter any new bargaining mode and move back into negotiations at some point? The Russian military operation is controlled in the manual regime by the Russian military political leadership, and it arranges its military steps in accordance with its political steps and statements. Therefore, we observe various signals. It was clear that after the 9th of May, Russia would look for ways to relieve itself, but this process continues. Another thing is that Ukraine agrees to this process. In the context of what happened yesterday in Mariupol, there is no exact information yet. But all the signals given by the General Staff of Ukraine, the President of Ukraine, I think this is not just a surrender, but some kind of operation, details of which are not disclosed for now. Therefore, I think we need to take some time to comment on this story. Let's get back to your first question. That's just the topic of negotiations. Both sides need a truce. The Russian Federation always has such an option to switch to a positional combat. But I think that Russian army will not want to go into a positional war, because the new Kherson People's Republic, Ukraine under no circumstance agrees to this. Therefore, let's put it in this way. If there is a peace process, it will be either some kind of humanitarian process, let's say for a couple of weeks, for the exchange of prisoners or for exchange of corpses during a short truce, at some point in order to conclude a more sustainable truce, let's say for 3 months, for 6 months. It is necessary for both parties. Both sides are exhausted, both Ukraine and Russia. And let's say those 5 or 6 months of ceasefire before a new aggravation, it will be positive for both sides. Both sides will strengthen their forces, but I believe that while Kherson is under occupation, Ukraine is unlikely to agree to, let's say, a long-term truce. Well, first of all, we would rather think about how to force Russia into negotiations during which it will retreat to the borders that were before the war. And at the best, what we can count on is the borders of 1991. The return of Crimea. Personally, I hope so. Otherwise, I just don't see the point. Of course, you're talking emotionally here, but I want to say a few words about this, so you know your strength. You could calculate your strengths and your capabilities. I reply often in social media. There are a lot of hotheads who suggest attacking even the Belgorod region of Russia. This is not good for this time of war. It leads to the polarization of the society. Crimea is your territory. The whole world recognizes it, but Crimea is a painful topic for Russia. And combat operations against Crimea, the start of these operations should begin when favorable conditions are provided in the Russian Federation itself. Otherwise, it could be an occasion, a cause to use tactical nuclear weapons against you, and I don't think you need a new Chernobyl. Thank you very much for your sincere opinion, for being on our air, for your expertise. Let's hope that scenario will unfold the best for Ukraine, and let's see how things go from here with the assumed ceasefire. I hope to see you and yours in our studio again. Thank you very much.